All right, good morning and welcome to Breaking Points. Sagar is out today. Emily couldn't be here, and so here I am, joined by Krystal Ball. Krystal, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Little lefty takeover of
That's
Breaking
right.
Points.
And it's appropriate. Yeah, we're going to talk about the DNC, and so I think people will benefit from the lefty takeover.
I mean, lefty takeover, in my opinion, is always appropriate. It's always the right move. So as you mentioned, we're going to do a bunch of promoing of the DNC or previewing of the DNC. We're actually going to be on the ground, all of us there. It's part of why we wanted to make sure Sagar rested it up. So he is ready for that trip. And we've got a bunch of new polls we're going to dig into from some interesting states and some Tim Walz approval ratings we want to take a look at, see how he's doing with the people. We have both candidates talking about the economy. Kamala Harris issuing her very first policy pronouncements expected. What is that happening Friday? I think she's given that speech.
That sounds right. Yeah, first one that's not a reversal of her past positions. Exactly.
Right. She's gone from backtracking to now we may actually lay some groundwork in terms of what she might actually do. We've got some grumblings from the right, including Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens, about Trump and his team and how his campaign is going. We've got the media deciding not to publish any of the hacked Trump campaign documents, obviously stark contrast with how they handled 2016. So I'm particularly interested to hear Ryan's perspective on that. We've got Mehdi Hasan coming in. He's got a documentary about the absolute horrors that are being perpetrated in Gaza. So looking forward to speaking with him about that. And we got a little Ryan special. He's taking a look at MDMA therapy had a major setback at the FDA. And you've got two different experts coming in to talk about this, right, Ryan?
Yes, both of them actually have been, heavily involved in the decision that the FDA released recently not to move forward with legalizing it for medical purposes. So, kind of a mess, complicated. And we'll talk to them. They disagree pretty strongly about which direction to go, and both of them played a kind of leading role in this mess.
Yeah, so it's interesting because they're both advocates for the therapy, but they had very different views about what they wanted the federal government approach to be. So I'm looking forward to watching that one personally and hearing what the different perspectives are there. But let's go ahead and get to the first block here. As we mentioned, the DNC is starting next week. It's easy to forget because everything just happened so fast and it feels like a million years ago at this point that Joe Biden dropped out of the race. But this is quite an unusual situation where, just a couple months ago, we thought it was going to be a different guy who was being coronated at the DNC. Now we've got Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. As I mentioned before, and can put this up on the screen, all four of us are going to be on the ground in Chicago. There we are. Look at that exciting group of people.
Good looking crew.
So just so you guys know, the timing of the shows, because, most of the action of the DNC is in the evening. So timing of the shows and the structure of the shows, all that's going to be a little bit different next week. But as always, if you are able to support us, these sorts of things are expensive, but I think also add a lot to what you guys get out of the product. BreakingPoints.com if you can become a premium subscriber. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we are expecting there in terms of the speaker lineup. We can put this up on the screen from NBC News. Joe Biden, former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, all confirmed as speakers. You're also going to have President Jimmy Carter's grandson, Jason Carter, who's going to be confirmed to be speaking as a representative for his grandfather. I know you've also got, Pete Buttigieg and some of the other sort of leading luminaries of the Democratic Party that are going to be there and have speaking slots as well. And we got a little bit of a preview of what the speaker lineup is going to be in terms of the order. We can put this up on the screen. This is kind of noteworthy because they've got Joe Biden buried in a not so great speaking slot time on Monday. Actually, Hillary Clinton got a better speaking slot than he did. Then you've got Obama on Tuesday, former President Bill Clinton Wednesday, Kamala Harris Thursday, Walz Wednesday as per custom. So that's a little bit of a sketch of what we're looking at for next week, Ryan.
Yeah, and the controversy that the kind of White House press corps is trying to gin up a little bit is about whether or not Biden is going to actually stay for the convention. And it appears that he's not. Like that, those are the indications that we're getting so far, that he's going to give probably a pretty short speech Monday and then take his ball and go back to Washington and continue being the president for another couple months. They're also ginning up this controversy between Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden. Like, have these long-term friends, have they fallen out over Nancy Pelosi leading this kind of soft coup to get this guy off the ticket? And as I've been following this, I've been thinking, are we supposed to really care whether or not these two people in their mid-80s are going to be friends for the rest of their lives? But more fundamentally, Biden doesn't really have a base, which is exposed by this whole non-controversy. Like, he never developed like a Bernie Sanders style following or an Obama style following over the course of his career, such that if he gets slighted by a speaking gig on Monday, all the Biden heads are going to be furious about it. Biden was always just a stand-in for the party, and that's what he was as president. And now that he's no longer kind of connected to the party, I don't think there's going to be anybody who's willing to even be like publicly upset about the fact that he's getting snubbed.
Not at all. Not at all. And you alluded to the palace intrigue. We can put this up on the screen, this tear sheet. That's what you're talking about. So you've got Joe Biden set to snub Barack Obama and Kamala Harris speeches at the DNC. And, you know, is it a snub or is he an old man who doesn't really want to be there the whole time while, I mean, I wouldn't, right? I wouldn't want to be there the whole time. This was supposed to be your party. It's no longer your party.
You can't, yes, if you have any pride whatsoever,
yeah,
you can't,
I mean,
you gotta get out of there.
On a personal level. And so I do find the Nancy Pelosi Biden thing, I mean, I find her interesting as a character, the way she clearly is the one person in the Democratic Party who really understands and is willing to wield power. And then the tense, strange relationship between Biden and Obama has also always been interesting because of their very contrasting political styles. Biden always had this sort of chip on his shoulder about, you know, Obama looking down his nose at him. Here's Obama, the Ivy League educated, blah, 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 professorial, doesn't like getting his hands dirty and the rough and tumble of politics. Joe Biden, polar opposite, you know, his thing was always having the relationships and getting in there and glad handling and all of that sort of stuff. So, but I think you're right about about how much the media fixates on this sort of thing versus, you know, any of the more substantive questions, which we're going to get to later about the policy and what any of this actually means and what any of these candidates are actually promising for the American people. We can go ahead and put this next piece up on the screen here, which gives some more intel about what the week is going to look like. This is kind of an attempt at a show of force here. Harrison Walls planning a rally in Milwaukee at the very same spot that Trump recently held a rally, and they're going to do it during the Democratic convention. So not during the primetime speeches, but this is an attempt to show, hey, we can put on two big events at the same time. We've got so much enthusiasm that we can not only pack the house, of course, at the DNC, but we can pack the house at this large arena that Trump was just speaking at. So trying to make, you know, sort of a point about how big and popular the campaign is at this point.
Right, and at the same time, I'm going to put up this next element. Organizers are expecting, you know, upwards of 100,000 pro-Palestinian protesters to show up at the DNC, which, if they can actually deliver on that number, and I suspect that they may be able to. I know personally of a lot of people who are planning on going. That's going to be an incredible show of force, and it's truly remarkable that that it's coinciding with these ceasefire talks that are, you know, getting underway in Cairo and Doha, you know, today, like just as we speak, the mediators are getting together, and everybody just trying to push Israel to accept the deal that Israel already accepted. And we talked about this on the show yesterday, but Iran is basically publicly saying that if Israel will cut a ceasefire deal, basically accept the deal they already put forward, then Iran will not retaliate against them. So they could have a ceasefire deal with Hamas, they could avert a strike from Iran, and all they have to do is agree to the deal they already agreed to. And it's all happening while the Democratic convention is unfolding amid a backdrop of potentially, you know, 100,000 people in the streets. And yet everybody seems to think that Israel is going to say no to this deal. Do you have any optimism that next week we'll be talking about the implementation of a coming ceasefire deal?
No. I mean, I think you'd be a fool at this point, given how many times we've been to this show, to have real significant optimism here. And listen, if it's left in the hands of Bibi Netanyahu, I don't think there's any doubt what direction we're going. And the only thing that could change that is if Joe Biden actually decided, hey, we're going to basically force you to take this. And by using the leverage that we have. And of course, there's zero indication that he's willing to do anything other than, once again, leak to Barack Ravid how upset he is about how things are going. Like, I think that's the most that we could expect. But the polling is also, at this point, really quite clear. We have Mehdi Hassan on later and his outfit, Zateo. They did some polling showing that this is a significant electoral issue for quite a large chunk of Democrats and independents, and that there is nothing but political benefit to be gained from actually obtaining and achieving a ceasefire. Bibi, obviously, he not only wants to run out the clock, he wants to drag us into this larger war, which is something he's wanted, is to get us more directly involved in some direct conflict with Iran for a long time. That would be a disaster on every level, on a humanitarian level, on an American political interest level. It would be a disaster for Kamala Harris's campaign on a political level. Those are all things that he hopes for. He wants Trump to be back in the White House. So if it's bad news for Joe Biden, the Democrats, and Kamala Harris, that's a positive thing for Bibi Netanyahu. So, the only way that I think that we're talking about the implementation of a ceasefire deal and what comes after and what, the potential prospects for a longer term, more lasting and just peace might be is if Biden actually had some sort of, awakening and decided to use leverage in a way that there is just no indication. But if you're Kamala Harris behind the scenes, whatever leverage she which I don't think she has much power in that White House. I don't think she's ever had much power in that White House. The best thing she could do politically for herself would be to press and push Joe Biden and his team to put that kind of pressure on Netanyahu to achieve the ceasefire deal, because those protesters are a visible reminder of one of the biggest political problems that she has. And one of the most difficult situations that she has to resolve. Because, Ryan, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I was on Majority Report last week, and Sam was asking me this question of, okay, but, she's the vice president. Like, how far can she really distance herself from Joe Biden? Doesn't she just kind of have to do this, like, wink and a nod that I promise, guys, I'll be different, and send out some, Ben Rhodes onto Chris Hayes' show to signal, like, no, guys, she's really going to be different if she gets in there. Do you think that's true, or do you think there's more room for her to separate herself from this monstrous genocidal policy of Joe Biden?
I think there's such different people that there is at least an opportunity, and I think people did understand how powerless she was, which paradoxically creates an opening for her to start flexing some power now. We actually put up this next element, which is related to this. This is about the shocking parallels that a lot of people have identified between 1968, the convention in Chicago, that devolved into anti-Vietnam War, protests and a police riot, and this year, a key lesson from 1968 that a lot of people have kind of missed is that privately, Hubert Humphrey, who was Johnson's vice president and was coronated at Chicago without basically a primary, was against the Vietnam War, wanted to end it, but was unwilling to kind of buck Johnson. And so went into the election this hobbled candidate who was seen by the public as just continuing to pursue the Johnson policy and not having his own path towards peace. Under pressure from the protests, he eventually said that he would propose a halt to the bombing. Johnson then got mad at him about that and said it was undermining his negotiations with the Viet Cong. Kissinger and Nixon then back-channeled in a genuinely treasonous way to the Viet Cong and urged them not to cut a peace deal because they would get a better deal. If Nixon won in 1968, that not only was that treason and cost the lives of many Vietnamese and Americans, it was a lie. Like, they did not get a better deal. The war went on for many years. So I was expecting perhaps a replay of that. Trump is very much a Nixon kind of acolyte. Yet, speaking of Barack Ravid, he reported for Axios that Trump, I don't know if you saw this, had a call with Netanyahu and told him, buddy, you need to take this deal. So even the Trump administration, which presumably would benefit, or the Trump campaign, which hopes to be a Trump administration again, which would benefit from Bibi rejecting the ceasefire deal, even they are pushing him. which suggests that there's some structural interest that the U.S. has that is diverging from Israel's at this point, which is the one thing that gives me some optimism that perhaps this is going to move forward. Because at the end of the day, Israel is a tiny country and it is a client of the United States. And the United States has major interests that it may feel are being undermined, and it may believe that Iran, China, and Russia are all objectively becoming more powerful as a result of this flailing that we're doing in the region.
I don't think there can be any doubt about that. And it is interesting. I wonder with Trump too. I mean, he's also looking at this and saying, like, I don't really want to inherit this mess if I'm back in the White House either. But I'm sure the calculus for Bibi has always been, all right, let me just muddle through and get to a potential Donald Trump White House. And then I can really do whatever I want and face absolutely no even like hand-wringing or leaks to the press, et cetera. So I do wonder if that significantly changes his calculation if he sees, okay, even this guy who's supposed to be my guy, even he is ready for this to get wrapped up. So potentially a little bit of hope there. Go ahead, Ryan.
No, and the funny element there, the interpersonal element, Trump is still mad at Netanyahu for congratulating Biden on his victory.
Petty. So petty.
Like, Bibi didn't stop the steal, and so he's going to pay for it the rest of his life.
Yeah, I mean, incredible stuff. You know, the funny thing about that op-ed that we put up from the Washington Post about the 1968 parallels, of which there truly are many, is, of course, the conclusion is that's why the protesters should back down. That's why the protesters shouldn't be pressing, Biden or Harris, et cetera, instead of that's why Biden needs to push to get a ceasefire deal. That's why we need to bring this outrageous, immoral, genocide to a close and move beyond this. Instead, it's all on, these relatively powerless protesters who are objecting to the absolutely horrific images that they're seeing in their social media feeds every day. So perfect Washington Post ending there. One last piece here with the DNC coming up. We've got a little bit of a chart analyzing the Democratic Party vibes. The all-important vibes heading into the DNC. So this is just among Democrats. It's from Civics. And they asked people, how are you feeling about the way things are going in the U.S. today? And you can see when Biden exits the presidential race, the number that feels hopeful just absolutely skyrockets, jumps up. That's that blue line there to 34%. The number that says, the percent that says that they're scared really drops down. Angry drops down. Excited jumps up a bit. So they definitely, putting aside genocide, they come in with the vibes, Ryan. They come in with much better vibes than they did previously.
They sure do. And pretty hard to see a vibe shift like that isn't drug-induced. That's just reality making that line spike. Really quite incredible.
Yes, indeed.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.